So yeah, I'm going to talk to you about something that might be normally thought of as for geeks, even more than code, and that's methods. And we're going to hear from a couple of projects in a minute that are commissions from the ECAS Festival Network. But I'm going to introduce the theme of Festival as Lab, which has been taken up by festivals around the world and that was originated in Manchester with Future Everything. And I'm going to quickly introduce a toolkit. We've kind of developed this way of working over 16 years, and we realised that other people could benefit from this, and so we wanted to open that up and make it more accessible and sort of publish the ways we work. The publication that you got in your goodie bags documents some of this as well, so there's some reference points in there. And this way of working has kind of taken us to different places than you might expect for a cultural festival. Our background's in digital culture, in arts, in activism, in all sorts of spaces, but we've ended up running projects that have had impact far beyond the festival. One that's kind of formed a thread over the last couple of years is Open Data Cities, that led to the creation of Data GM, and that's very much come out of our method, which I'm going to talk about. And it's led to us as an organisation get recognition in unexpected places. We get referred to as a think tank. We don't really like that. We prefer do tank. But we're seen as now as an innovation organisation, not just a festival-based or cultural organisation. We're still very passionate about the arts, but we've been able to expand that impact. And that's had a real impact beyond us. The Guardian ran 2 Smart City supplements, and they featured us on the cover of both of them for our work in Manchester. And we work across all levels in Manchester, from our friends in the digital community in places like MadLab, friends at the BBC and elsewhere, right through to city leaders, private sector, universities, etc. So Future Everything is a festival, you might have noticed. It works, as most festivals do, as a tourism destination, as somewhere that showcases, supports, commissions great art, presents great music. And it's very much about the community of people that come. The intelligence of Future Everything, it comes from that global community of people who take part in the festival here or in the year-round projects. And now we've come to run year-round innovation projects outside the festival programme. The festival is about 50% of what we do now, and we run these innovation labs on all sorts of themes. Over the years we've done about 20 of them, Open Data Cities being just one. And it's led to the festival itself becoming a research platform. It's conceived as a living lab, a space where we can test, experiment, play with prototypes, new ideas, and make those ideas tangible. Take them out of spaces like this into the streets, making them material through artworks and experiences. And that's led to recognition. It's led to serious engagement in the academic world. The festival was part of Lancaster University's research return. These methods have been developed in collaboration with Lancaster University. I also have a post up there. And that led to Lancaster being assessed as joint 3rd for research in art and design in the UK. So it's become very successful. The festival's now been accepted into the European network of living labs, and most other living labs are big tech organisations or they're cities. We're certainly the only festival in the European network of living labs. So, methods are for geeks. Where do our methods come from? Well, living labs, as I'll talk about in a minute, is a method from computer science. So it's about participatory design, and I'll talk about that, but we've come from a different place. Our methods are very, very different to what you might find in industry. When we talk about innovation, it's got a very different flavour and sense that you might find in a commercial development lab or in a university lab. Our methods come from the art scene, from media art. His early artwork, David Rokeby, Very Nervous System, seminal work in interactive media, very early work in changing the relationship between artists, audience, technology. Other works we're interested in, an artist who's very much part of our network, Christian Nold, it's about art and social engagement. It's about empowering responsive communities. These are our kind of reference points. Also, going further, I think we're activists at heart, and we've been informed by Joseph Beuys and the idea of art as social sculpture, which shapes society and politics. And then, of course, we're informed by open source. We're informed by doing it together, collaborative culture. That's right at the core of what we're about, and that enters into our approach and methods. So Living Lab, a living lab, if you think how we normally develop technologies, devices, typically you'd imagine it in a lab environment. And this works very well for certain things. A lab is by definition a controlled environment. You can limit the inputs and outputs. You can control the temperature. You can shut out dust. You can reproduce experiments very easily because it's a controlled environment. Well, the opposite of a controlled environment is something out in the wild, something out in the city. And there's an understanding, I think the classic case was there's a catastrophic plane crash when they introduced some new dials on aircraft, and they didn't involve the pilots in testing those dials. And there was a plane crash and people died because they hadn't engaged the users in the design process. So Living Labs is all about taking design, development out into the world and doing it with real people in lived environments. And this is a nice quote which kind of sums up something of the ethos of this. Somewhere, something incredible is waiting to be known, by Carl Sagan. And it's very much the idea that out there we get serendipity. We get unexpected things. We can't control that environment so much, but then we can't control how things are used. A technology only comes alive when it develops a culture of use around it. And that's where we should be testing. That's where we should be designing. It's about co-design, involving people in that process. So for us, for Future Everything, this emerged through our artistic programs. It's not a bolt-on. It emerged through the work of commissioning, developing art, of being involved in technology debates and helping to shape those. Between 2003 and 2005, we had a program called Mobile Connections, and that was all about mobile media and locative media, digital mapping. The idea that when we've got a mobile device, we expect the internet to be placeless. It doesn't matter where you are. But actually the really interesting thing is it changes how you relate to where you are. And there's incredible rich ideas coming out at this time. During 2003, there was the early workshops where all these ideas really crystallized, drawing from other areas, ubiquitous computing, key text by someone called Ben Russell, Head Manifesto. And there's some phenomenal ideas. So some of the things we see today, which put these into action, are a little disappointing. No offence, Foursquare, but I think we had better ideas, and I think there's more to come. We had another exhibition, Off the Map, and then a project which was actually an artwork that I did was called Loca. And this really put these ideas into practice. I was interested in how mobile tracking is both enabling, it makes possible all kinds of cool stuff, but it also creates a new capacity for surveillance. So in San Jose, at an art festival in the States, we deployed a network of Bluetooth nodes, and we tracked people without their permission. We sent them messages by bluejacking and drew them into this fictional social network that started off being very friendly and became slightly more sinister as the days unfolded. And if you want to look that up, that's online. So Loca, set to discoverable. That's the film.
Loca.
I'm not going to show you. Later ones. From there, the interests evolved away from the devices themselves to more about the urban space, cities, the urban interface and hacking cities. We did a big project in, when was it, 2006 or 7, where we took over the main shopping centre and we filled it with net art, locative art, free media. We did a project where we took over the CCTV network and we created artworks only using the technology infrastructure that was in the shopping centre, sort of showing that technology is so ubiquitous we can just take and use what's already there. We launched the Social Technology Summits in about the same period, 2006. We did a big exhibition called Social Networking Unplugged, which was all about trying to understand the new social media space by commissioning artists to create experiences and artworks, not online, but out in the streets. And some of these artworks reproduced some of the interaction metaphors that you find on websites, such as MySpace, Facebook, and created offline equivalents. And then we involved the participants at the festival in kind of making that space, in taking that space over. Ethnographers were there observing and interacting to see how people made these places and made these social spaces together. Examples. Environment 2.0 was another one, and this was all about social sensing, about participatory mass observation. We were working with the Natural History Museum, the Met Office, and we wanted to find participatory, playful ways of generating data sets that the Met Office couldn't capture in any other way. So one project, for example, was climate bubbles, and we set out with a challenge. We wanted to map the urban heat island phenomenon. The Met Office has very limited stations where they can monitor climate. One of the indicators for the urban heat island phenomenon was wind flow. So we devised these bubble blowing games, a bubble race and a bubble chase. When you blow a bubble, chase after it, record where it lands, do that 10 times, upload that, and you've got the direction. You do another one where you race bubbles, time them, and you get the speed. And these were very playful prototypes. The Met Office scaled them up nationally. There's going to be one in Rome. But they didn't fundamentally lead to new infrastructure. But it was all about probes that lead to new ideas that maybe can challenge thinking, new ideas, new ways of working. Another one was distant collaboration. And this was all about looking at new ways to be globally connected. The motivation coming from Environment 2.0, that all began in 2006 with a carbon audit of the festival, and we realised that over 90% of our carbon footprint was air travel to the festival. So there's no point changing the printers in the office. You have to address how people travel to the festival. So last year we created GlowNet, which was a prototype. The festival here wasn't in one venue, it was in five cities around the world, in 5 different time zones: Sendai, Japan, Istanbul, Turkey, Manchester, UK, Sao Paulo, Brazil, Vancouver, Canada. And we networked those spaces in different ways as a kind of, again, an experiment or a prototype in a new way of running an event. The city experiment, one of our recurring themes is a city experiment. Working with Adam Greenfield, his thesis was that mobile media, social media, remove the serendipity from the city. So we're all looking at our phones and we're introduced to people like us instead of those who aren't like us. So we created this challenge linked to GlowNet to devise ways of introducing serendipity back into the network city. Through this work, we've also built up greater relationships in Manchester, and the festival's become a trusted intermediary between grassroots communities, the city leaders, corporations, various agencies, and it creates connectivity, social trust, social connectivity within the city. Some of the events we do, the city debate, where we bring all of those different layers of the city together to discuss the big issues, alongside prototypes and experiments. And then Open Data Cities is one which has really evolved from deploying very playful, experimental prototypes into actually building real infrastructure. Manchester, through Future Everything, was the first city in the UK funded to make the transition to being an open data city, and that responded to a provocation in the conference. I think I mentioned on the opening day, it was very much a what if. What if we could turn Manchester into an open data city? And we saw an opportunity. There's a lot of change in Manchester. It's moving to a city region. There need to be structural reform. So it was an opportunity to make real change, and that led to Data GM. Sorry, that's actually me. How embarrassing. And that's an example of how this work has taken us a long way from our cultural roots, where we still live, we're still passionate about great art, to doing work that actually leads to infrastructural change. So out of all this work, and very much as part of our membership of this new European Festivals Network, ECAS, we wanted to make these tools more available. So we published the Festivals Lab Toolkit. That's online and under innovation on our website. It's a new book. And as I say, this was about making it more accessible. The ECAS network has adopted that as its inaugural theme. Other festivals outside Europe, such as MUTEC in Canada, New Forms in Vancouver, also adopting this. And that's really great to watch this meme kind of spread and ripple outwards. I've got loads and loads of stuff on what it is. You can find it on the website. So let me just kind of précis it. I'll just summarize about how this works. So the idea behind this is that festivals are experimental spaces. Certainly festivals like this, they're things where stuff that's just emerging gets showcased for the first time. If you've ever developed a project or been in one of the exhibition spaces, you know it's live, it's being developed there, and that's before you get to the workshops. These are spaces where new ideas emerge, where new work's presented, where that work's tested with the public, and then that feeds into new iterations. This kind of festival doesn't just put the big shiny stuff on display that's already polished. All the work's fragile. Many people define it as unstable media. So it's a ready-made environment for this kind of exploration. I'm just going to skip some of this. One of the sort of metaphors that we use for this model, and this has very much come out of collaboration with Lancaster University, with colleagues up there, is this idea of bringing the future into the present. I'm a little bit cynical about futurology. It's probably a necessary evil. I'm actually more interested in looking at what's over the horizon and bringing that future into the present, making change today. And one way of doing that is to commission artists and designers to create experiences, to create artworks, to create design projects that make an aspect of a possible future tangible, something that you can experience, that you can play with, that you can criticize, that you can stand back from and understand how it might impact. Going right back to the artwork, Loka, that was taking one of the more potentially negative sides of social media and really amplifying it so that we can see how that might impact on us. Just skip here. The kind of activity for us, and this will kind of bridge to the presentations you're going to see, covers a range of different types of activity and types of artifacts. With Future Everything, we've got a core interest in social change, in social engagement, in making a change in the city, in our society, but we also show artwork. And some of these could be a new form of media, a new form of participation, a new artistic form. Others might be a new urban service. I mean, one project we've got being tested here is Our Travel, project by Lancaster University that hopefully you've been using, that's a social media transport app. It's all about how you can connect and create communities around the journeys you take and how you can find some of the lesser-known venues. So the activity can span all these kinds of things. There's lots of thinking that comes from the research and methods that come out of Living Labs about ways to start, ways to approach. We put our focus on community. You start with community. Community is king. But often it helps to start with a very tangible, real challenge, a problem that needs solving. How do you get to that problem is another issue. So I'm going to skip that, I'm going to skip that. And then so, you know, today our focus, sort of after open data, is the data dimension. We've started a data literacy program, a data art program, and some of the things that we might look at are, what kind of data is collected? What kind of services can you build on that data? What kind of new mobile experiences can you create? And linking to discussions next door, what kind of experiences can you create with unlimited bandwidth? So I'm going to now introduce the next two speakers. For the ECAS Festival as Lab commissions, we've commissioned two projects that are on display here, and they each represent a different end of the spectrum. One of them's very much a social project. This is Our City. It's about using new approaches to crowdsourcing, new intuitive approaches to crowdsourcing, and linking that to particular places to both give people a voice in a new way, but also reflect that back to them so that can lead to social change. And Adam Neiman has been leading that and driving that forward with partners. So Future Everything, Lancaster University and Manchester Communication Academy. And we've got a first iteration of that here. Again, it's a prototype, and we're going to hopefully develop that further. We've started to want to work longer term rather than just do one-offs. And then the second one's very different. It's about a form of participation, a new form of art that's all about music and audiovisual art. So it's not about the city, but it's about performance and participation. I always like to end on that slide. Future Everything is a collaborative project. You are our community, and I hope that you'll get to engage in some of the innovation labs that follow. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Adam Neiman. I'm just going to whip this out. Yeah, this is where it gets interactive, because be with you in a second. Yes, so some of you may have seen downstairs. You're just going to have to give me a second to connect here. Yeah, I had it there for a second. Yeah? Okay, great. Here we are. So some of you may have seen this downstairs. This is the installation from the project I've been working on called Our City, which is a collaboration with Voice Your View. And it involves projecting onto a map. And this is where it gets interactive. This is where you become part of the festival, because what we were trying to do was to collect comments about Manchester, to map people's feelings, map Manchester in terms of feelings, the values that people attribute to Manchester, people's fears and aspirations for the future of Manchester. And we were doing that, soliciting it with texts and with a web app. So what I want you to do now is to take out your mobile phones, and some of you are Mancunians. You've got well-developed feelings about Manchester. Some of you have just come into Manchester. I want you to sort of text your impressions, and I'll show you how that works in just a second. In fact, I'm going to show you now, because I can get a version of the application up. We should see, if you're doing as you're told, we should see your texts appearing. Mackerel lunch was very tasty. It's true. So what's happening here is we're collecting a whole range of different comments, and we're not imposing restrictions on how those comments are expressed. It's not like you fit in a form. You don't have to put a slider about the extent to which you like something or dislike something. The hard work of organising these comments into some sort of sense, that's all coming from the Voice Your View software, which is software developed at Lancaster University, which analyses language, natural language. So these are some of the comments, and you might be able to see that they're attached to different geographical locations. So this is what it looks like on the screen. But I really wanted to make something which actually allowed you to engage with Manchester on a physical level as well as on this sort of conceptual level. And that's why the installation downstairs is a map which is aligned with Manchester. Oh, that's a positive one. So I wanted you to see this view here. This is all the comments which have been grouped together by theme, because the Voice Your View software, that's what it can do. It can sort of analyze them and understand what's being said, and can give you a sort of overview, précis, of the kinds of things which are being said. Let's just go back to this now. So this is Voice Your View, how it organizes things. It organizes things by theme, terms, sentiment, and actionability. And so I think that the main thing that I've brought to it is the sense of how you can connect to it on a physical level as well as as well as the sort of conceptual level. Because that's a lot of my work has got to do with that. A lot of my work has got to do with scale, and so understanding Manchester on all scales, you can understand it simultaneously, is an important part of our city, because we actually experience Manchester from a single perspective. We walk through it and with a single pair of eyes. But we can take a step back and we can think about it as a whole city. We can look at statistics about the city. We can look at statistics about the carbon dioxide emissions of the city, for instance. That's a different way of sort of engaging with it. Also, the fact that there are millions of people here, millions of individual perspectives, it means usually we've got a choice in how we think about it. We can either think in terms of statistical analysis of millions of views of the city, or we can think about our single perspective. We can just switch between one or the other. Those are the only two alternatives we have. What I think is exciting about Voice Your View is that it gives us a little bit more granularity. I don't want to show you that. Yes, I do want to show you that. This, just to give some context, this is another thing that I did where, again, scale is important. This is called Space Signpost, and the idea is that it's a thing in, there's one of these in Bristol and one in Warsaw, and you're walking in the street and you can select an object in space and it will point to it and it will tell you where you are. And the project was originally called Welcome to the Neighbourhood, and it was developed in collaboration with Kerry Facer, who was here yesterday. Some of you might have seen her. And so again, it was called Welcome to the Neighbourhood because it was trying to encourage people to inhabit a larger area than they usually do in their daily life. So this is how it works. It just sits there and people play with it. This is another piece called The Air Above, and what it's doing is mapping the air directly above somebody's head on the same scale as an ordinary Ordnance Survey map. So just to remind people that there's stuff going on between their feet and the edge of space. The edge of space is the top blue line. That's what it looks like. This is another one. This is a work in progress, which is attempting to show in real time everybody. It's called life changes. Whenever there's a white spot, whenever a white flash happens, that's somebody being born. And whenever there's a blue flash, that's when somebody's dying. The pink areas are the areas of dense population. So it doesn't actually know when people are being born or when they die, but that's the beauty of statistics. You can tell pretty clearly that there's somebody in the UK being born every few seconds. And in China, they're really going for it. And again, this is a sort of scale thing. This is something that we can sort of that we tend to understand only in a statistical kind of way, and it's trying to join the gap between the personal and the statistical. This is one called allotment. And so the idea of this is to ask the question, if we shared the world out fairly, if we each got our own fair share of the land, how much would we get? And it turns out that it's this much. There's a person for scale. And this is what we'd get. What's quite interesting is how small the urban area we'd have. It's just 7 meters by 7 meters. This is another version of the same thing. We'd have about 58 trees if we shared them out. This is a similar idea called land cover islands, where this is because the world is a messy place and I wanted to tidy it up a bit. So if we were to group if we were to just group the world by land use, this is what we would get. We'd have special islands of the urban island. I can't remember how wide it would be, but it's not very big. So the theme here is statistics, but there's I want statistics to be very personal. I want people to relate to them in a very concrete kind of way. Because I think what happens with statistics, and this is the strength of statistics, is that they end up being extremely abstract. So abstraction is what makes statistics powerful. Nevertheless, I want to make them concrete whenever I get a chance. So for instance, I'll just show you this as a sort of concrete example. This is what would happen if you got all of the water in the world and gathered it together into a single ball. And the other one is all of the air in the atmosphere. So it's a surprisingly small volume. The oceans on average are only 3.5 kilometers deep. And so this is what I mean about making statistics concrete. Here's an example of a perfectly good but boring graph. And this is exactly the same graph, but instead of just having the numbers represented by a bar, abstracted that way, this is the actual volume of the carbon dioxide that we're talking about. And in being able to engage with it physically changes the numbers. The numbers now become something that you can actually sort of engage with differently. So a similar thing, this is what I did over breakfast this morning. I was thinking about Manchester, and Greater Manchester's daily emissions of carbon dioxide are just under 50,000 tonnes a day. Now that's a figure which meant as much to me as it does to you. So I made a quick picture of that. And so here we are. This is using our experience, our embodied experience of Manchester right here, right now, to make sense of an otherwise sort of meaningless statistic. So we're here. This is Manchester, and that's the volume that is emitted. I mean, this isn't particularly significant, but it is a sort of nice example of how we can actually use our experience of a city to make sense of data. In this case, a single datum. And the line at the top, the dashed line at the top, that's the previous year's emissions. So you can see there's been an improvement. Anyway, let's go back to see how that's getting on. So do have a look at this downstairs when you can actually relate to it physically and see where these events are actually happening in relation to your body. And do continue to keep tweeting. So this is very experimental. We have learnt a lot about what works and what doesn't work, and what we need to do to make other aspects of it work, and different things that we want to try next time. And so yeah, I think both Will Sim from Voice Review and myself would like to thank Future Everything for the opportunity to realise this, make it actually happen, really test it properly. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Marco Ritter. I'm from Dresden, Germany, and I represent Interlight. I'm going to show you the Switchboy. It's a new tool we developed to create immersion and interaction in public spaces. Well, I really have to hurry. They told me they want to keep the schedule, and we are already behind it. So Interlight is a nucleus of a greater network. If you're interested in what we do, just check out our website. Got lots of videos and lots of project presentations. In general, what we do, we design experiences, and we use digital media for that. This means we identified two main categories to be active, to actually create these experiences. This is interaction, both with the machine, a human-machine interaction, and between humans, to actually use media to engage people, to cooperate or collaborate or work together, whatever. And immersion. Immersion is something different. It's meant to remove any distracting things. For example, visually, you can see this. For example, down there, that's a full dome, a dome. You can walk into it, and all you see is visual presentation. You don't have anything else. You're wrapped around with digital content. This means people are more focused on what they see, and they actually dive into the content. If it's, for example, data visualization, you can imagine they are like actually diving into the data. Or if it's visuals, they are actually inside. It has a tremendous effect, really. Yeah, these are the projects. There are lot more of them on the website. take the time and watch yourself. What we learned from them all is that interdisciplinary work is really good for everybody involved, because there's much to be gained from different perspectives working together. Process orientation is a huge thing, because you always have like prototypes and things to test, to showcase, and you learn when you see what people are using it for, and or abusing even. However, we found that for most of our projects, we always had to start over. We always started from scratch. So we had the idea of actually creating a toolkit that comes with standards, that comes with easy to use setup for the things we do to create immersion and interaction. So the name of this toolkit is Chat, and the first component of it is the SwitchBoy. It's basically a VJ tool, but it's much more. It included an immersion engine, which means you well, more to that later, the immersion engine. You can actually create 3D real-time graphics and map them consistently on the walls. It got interfaces for all kinds of physical gadgets like game controllers or the Wii or dance mats. So you can actually go into a club, set up these projectors, map the walls with a tool, and be a VJ, and enhance the whole experience by actually allowing the audience to interact with it. So the people inside the space can, in an abstract way, interact with the visuals and with the audio. We're gonna include camera tracking later too. For example, we have done successful tests with the Kinect, and also we want to really tightly integrate Ableton Live to it. It's developed in VVVV. It's probably, I don't know if people know about this. It's a programming language, which is graphical. It's highly scalable. This SwitchBoy environment. It doesn't matter if there are like 12 projectors or just one. And the immersion engine makes sure that all projectors are synced, and that there is one spot in the room where everything looks like it's perspectively correctly. This one spot, it's called the sweet spot, is also changeable in real time. So imagine you track the people and like one single person, and he walks around or she walks around, and you can actually change the sweet spot in real time. So it's almost a cave-like setup. In the core of the SwitchBoy is an interface for patches, where people can create their own visuals, for example, data visualizations or just audio-visual representations, synesthetic experiences, or whatever. I think there are lots of more things to be done than I can even imagine. And this follows a certain interface and gives all the power of the SwitchBoy to even beginners of the programming language VVVV. Also, it's extensible. You can add on all kinds of club equipment that are usually available, DMX, laser, MIDI. You can add more things to interact with by supporting the Open Sound Control Protocol. And also you can add internet data in databases. well, we're gonna open source it in June, I think. I think it should be ready in June or July to foster online exchange and development of the content. We're gonna showcase it on more festivals, and we hope to create more audiovisual and interactive environments together with other people. Yeah, next time we're gonna be in Oslo. I don't know if somebody. So I'm supposed to let you go now. No, it's okay.